Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. By far, at least in my opinion, the most fascinating week 3 game we get. Georgia going on the road, playing Tennessee. The reason this game fires me up the way it does is I don't think there are many fans that know what these two teams are. We're going to figure out really damn quick just how dangerous both Georgia and Tennessee can be in 2025. And Dill, a ton of intriguing matchups that we're going to see play out in this football game as well. Fired up to get into it before we do, and as always, and this is very important. Georgia fans, Tennessee fans, please let it rip in the comment section. I believe we previewed this game last year, and it was a battlefield down there. I expect it to be the same heading into this matchup as well. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, you wanted to start with this Georgia offense going up this Tennessee defense, although dealing with a lot of injuries, has played some really quality football. What are you looking at the most between this Georgia offense and this Tennessee defense here?
I mean, it's going to be about if Georgia can really test what this interior defensive line is, because that's where all the injuries that I think matter. And they've frankly weathered the stuff in the back end really well. Like some
Yeah.
of those young kids have come in and played really good football for Tennessee. But they haven't seen an offensive line and a team that wants to establish themselves physically like the way Georgia's. I think Jackson Moy is going to be back. That's a huge one because that would be a difference maker for sure in this game.
Yep.
But what is Ethan Utley going to give you? What is Nathan Robinson going to give you? Jamal Wallace, those guys, what are they going to give you against an interior offensive line that can move you around?
You see, I like how you focused on the depth because that's what's more important. I think the guys that play a lot of snaps for Tennessee, I feel pretty dang good about where they're at when you get into the twos and threes, of which no doubt Georgia's going to try to force you to get some of that depth on the football field. Does Tennessee have the same quality of depth on the defensive line that they had last year? That's the question, because we know Tennessee's going to run with some pace. We know this defensive line is going to be having to play a lot of snaps in this game. Do we have the same caliber bodies we can rotate throughout 4 quarters of this football game? I like that one. And Dill, I'll say this. I think the run game for Georgia is going to be important because I had my question marks about Tennessee getting after the passer. They got some dudes coming off
Josh
the edge.
Heupel is playing legitimate first round player. I think he is going to be a problem, especially if Ernest Green isn't back healthy, because that right tackle spot got a little bit better with Bo Hughley in the second half against Austin Peay. Not particularly impressed, though, at the end of the day with that unit.
I think if Georgia struggles to run the football on the early downs, first and second down, if we find ourselves in third and long a lot, those obvious passing situations, if you're Georgia on the road here, you don't want to be in those kind of situations. Dill, here's another, I think, fascinating story to watch. I've liked what I've seen from these Tennessee linebackers. A linebacker unit that I feel like was good but not great last year and wasn't awesome in some of the bigger games they played, they've gotten involved a lot. And when you talk about a runner like Gunnar Stockton, and Dill, make no mistake about it, this is one of those games where you go and run Gunnar Stockton. Can these linebackers go sideline to sideline? They're going to get their eyes tested. You're going to see Gunnar Stockton keep it on some of these read options. Are these Tennessee linebackers up for the task, especially when you get into kind of feel like Gunnar Stockton's going to be involved?
And that's frankly where I like Tennessee's chances better, because I think you look the athleticism they have. Boog Carter, when he's on the field too, and I'm sure he's going to make his stamp and be the full-time starter of this game. They're not going to be punishing him anymore.
Yeah. The punishment's over after the first 2 weeks. He will not be.
He was good against ETSU, I thought, and he was making plays in the run game. I think he can be good there. That's where, can Georgia kind of establish that physicality in the run game? Because that's probably what you haven't quite been wowed with necessarily yet. Can Nate Frazier really get himself going? Because they've been good getting the ball to the perimeter with Gunnar Stockton and some of the younger backs. Can they get that, physical, heavy interior run game with that offensive line going a little bit? Because Tennessee, I think they want to play a bit of a horizontal game, frankly, against this.
Dill, and here's the thing with Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bones, the guys who are going to be getting the work for Georgia. Can he get the hard yards, man? We know Nate Frazier can be explosive when he gets to the second level, but I think turning a 2nd and 8 into a 2nd and 6, turning a 3rd and 4 into a 3rd and 2, keeping this Georgia offense on schedule, getting some of those hard yards after contact, Going to be really important in this one too. Dill, how about this? Can these Georgia wide receivers, the wide receivers that Georgia invested in the transfer portal, can they go win? Look, we've been really impressed with these Tennessee cornerbacks deal. I mean, the two best cornerbacks are dinged up right now. You're playing a true freshman who has played phenomenally in the first 2 games of the season. Colton Hood's been an awesome addition post spring on the other side. Who wins that matchup? Because I'm looking at these wide receivers and say, all right, Noah Thomas, Zachariah Branch, Colby Young. Hey, we brought you guys in going into 2025 to win these kind of matchups in these kind of games. Can they do that against the Tennessee secondary that's been solid so far, but probably hasn't seen these caliber of wide receivers heading into this matchup?
Especially if Georgia can really push them down the field, because that's what I think we're still waiting for. Because I think
Yes.
you saw Syracuse at times be able to hit some longer plays, especially when they forced Tennessee into some of those zone looks. Like, I think Georgia, if I'm you, I want to be able to see if we can beat these guys man to man, because that's where Tennessee's been at their best, I think, for the most part, is when they're just playing tight, aggressive coverage on the boundary. But you're right, they haven't seen these type of wideouts, and like Colby Young's got a lot of size to deal with those smaller corners who are frankly playing there for Tennessee right now.
Yeah,
Same with Noah Thomas. I don't know why I leave him out. They're both big wide receivers who they got to kind of impose themselves here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you retained Colby Young, you brought in Noah Thomas to give you that vertical threat, and we know Gunnar can push it. Like, look, is Gunnar Stockton the best quarterback in college football? I'm not prepared to say that, but we know he can throw a deep ball. Those explosive plays feel big in this football game as well. Dill, let's flip the side. Tennessee's offense versus Georgia defense, and the thing that I'm looking for here is, can Georgia with a light box stop this Tennessee rushing attack? And Dill, I got to give a ton of credit to Josh Heupel. Like, there are a lot of new faces on the offensive line. They've been dealing with an injury at right tackle with David Sanders, who I think we expect to be back in this one, but we're not necessarily sure. Georgia did a pretty solid job stopping the run with the light box last year in this matchup and kind of took away that vertical passing attack that Tennessee wants to get to. Can they do the same thing against a rushing attack that through 2 weeks has been really impressive for Tennessee?
And that's where I think you look at where the strength of Georgia is right now. That front seven, especially with the interior defensive line, because you look at the way like guys like Elijah Griffin are starting to play. The linebackers are clearly where Georgia is creating a real problem for a lot of teams. That is kind of running right into the teeth of that. So you kind of wonder, like, what you've seen some nice things from Joey Aguilar in terms of running that quarterback run too. I wonder how much he's going to get involved.
Gonna need him. I think both. I think
after the edge rushers a little bit for this Georgia team, because that's where I still think you wonder how good they really are.
Yeah, I think you have to run Joey and Carson in this game, or excuse me, not Carson, Gunnar Stockton in this game, right? When I'm looking at it and saying, all right, Tennessee and Georgia, you probably don't have to run your quarterbacks to win in a lot of games on your schedule. This game is not one of them. I think you're going to need Joey, and I think you're going to need Gunnar here. Both of these teams staying on schedule is going to be big, and I think the quarterbacks in the run game certainly will help. The deeper third, man. That's been the biggest difference so far. And look, we have a small sample size. Nico last year throwing the football 20 plus yards, 32% completion percentage. Through 2 games for Joey Aguilar, that completion percentage, 20 plus yards, 62%. I thought you saw some wide receivers making some plays. Now, granted, it was ETSU, it was Syracuse. It's not the Georgia defensive backs. Can you capitalize on the opportunities when you have to make game-changing plays? That's a storyline. And Dill, I'm looking at it and saying, hey, I've been impressed with these defensive backs. That's going to be a fun matchup. Here's I guess I'm kind of beating around the bush here. The matchup to me has Tennessee's wide receivers taken a step. We knew they would need to if Tennessee wanted to be dangerous in 2025. Well, we about to find out in this football game Saturday afternoon.
Because last year, the fact that they really couldn't create anything in the passing attack was a problem. Because, I wouldn't say Georgia just sat on that rushing attack for Tennessee. Like, they were able to get theirs to an extent.
Sure.
But again, you need to be balanced when you go play a Georgia defense. You can't be a one-dimensional team that, like, okay, getting into predictable spots, where I felt like Tennessee got to at times. Also, I don't think Tennessee's pass protection's been good enough in the past couple of years to be a one-dimensional team. We'll see if they've kind of taken that step here. But that's kind of where it comes to.
That's the last X Factor storyline I think we need to talk about is there's a real chance Tennessee's going to be trotting out true freshman at right tackle and David Sanders. Although I think Jesse Perry's been really, really solid as a right tackle.
That makes me, though, excited for David Sanders if he's out there. Because if he's beating out Jesse Perry, then he is playing at a high level, I would say.
I do agree. And here's the other thing. It's not just, all right, David Sanders is going to be starting at right tackle. This is my biggest question for Georgia throughout 2025. Who's the guy who, when you look at, oh, David Sanders, true freshman, going to be starting for Tennessee, who's the guy you're circling that's going to capitalize? Like last year, you had Michael Williams. You had Jalen Walker. You haven't necessarily seen that.
I don't know, man. I think Chris Cole is kind of showing that, like, because he did it again against Austin Peay. I saw another, like, just really elite bendy rush from him. He's got to line up on the edge and get after these Tennessee tackles, because that, to me, you want to see if they have it. You want to see if they can protect, because obviously that was the big issue for Tennessee last year. Chris Cole has been the guy who I feel like is making tackles really look silly. He's got to be out there on the edge challenging these guys all day. Both of them.
I think he's probably your best pure pass rusher coming off the edge, at least from what we've seen 2-game sample size for Georgia. The last thing is I think Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann are going to be cooking here. And this is a very important game to give a lot of different looks. You got a transfer portal center post-spring, got a transfer portal quarterback post-spring, true freshman starting at right tackle, another transfer at guard. That there's a lot of new faces that have not played a ton of football together up front. Georgia's historically been really good at giving a lot of different looks in the front seven. You are trying to take advantage of some communication, and we're testing, hey, is it gelled? Is it all together? Can a guy like Sam Pendleton and can Joey Aguilar get this offensive line in the right protections against a front that's multiple, man, that's versatile? Look, we don't know necessarily who the guys are for Georgia up front. They got a lot of versatility up there. They can give you a lot of different fronts. Can Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann cook there? Let's get into the pick. Georgia on the road, 7-point favorites. ESPN's computer analytics, that's about as much as I'll say, is favoring Tennessee in this football game. Dill, I'll give you the T-box first. Tennessee, Georgia, who you taking here?
Yeah, I got to disagree with the analytics. I just look, unless like David Hobbs is back and Jackson Moyes playing at a really high level, I really have some concerns about that interior defensive line. And I look at Georgia as like a game like, I mean, I don't know that we've seen it yet. So maybe, like, in fairness to Tennessee, like, have we seen Georgia be able to pound on teams like the way we have in the past? Maybe not. But I think he got it. I don't really see Nathan Robinson necessarily stopping this Georgia attack or Jamal Wallace. Like, I think you need a higher caliber of guy, and I'm not sure they're deep enough right now with some of those injuries. Give me Georgia. It's a hard team to beat when they're running the ball well.
Yeah, my question is, are we convinced they're running the football well? I'm going to go Tennessee. You're going to give me a touchdown with Tennessee at home here against the Georgia team that, look, I'm not going to put too much stock in the first 2 games, but I've not exactly been wowed about their physicality running the football. Dill, I am going to take Tennessee because I've actually been pretty impressed with what they've been along the line of scrimmage. And I think this is a little bit of a gut take here. Joey Aguilar's a gamer, man. Like, in a way that Nico wasn't. I feel like Joey Aguilar can get a little bit gritty. What Nico's biggest struggle with Tennessee was when it wasn't perfect, this kid struggled in a big way.
Yeah, he did take a lot of negative plays. That's a good point, because if you look, we talked a lot about negative plays last year, and Tennessee was littered with them, and a lot of them came from Nico taking sacks that you'd like to see a quarterback once in a while get out of.
Yeah, Joey Aguilar can do that stuff. Hey, look, is he going to be the NFL draft prospect that he actually ended up? He might be a better NFL draft prospect than Nico.
I don't know. You watching UCLA?
Yeah, I know. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, in terms of college quarterbacks that I'm trying to get behind, I like Joey Aguilar in this one. And again, 7 points against the Georgia offense that was sluggish against an Austin Peay team. And I've looked at Tennessee and said, I kind of like what I'm seeing on defense. I'm going to take Tennessee in this one. Going to be really close. You're going to figure out a lot about these two teams. 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.